Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Andrea. Thank you so much for being here. And for today's video, we are going to be talking about my pregnancy. I'm going to be telling you guys about from the time I found out I was pregnant all the way up until the last week of my pregnancy. If you guys would like a labor and delivery video as well, let me know in the comments. So yeah, if you guys want to know about my pregnancy, then just keep on watching. So as you guys know, I found out I was pregnant late September. I was getting ready for work one day and I decided to take a dollar pregnancy test and it came out positive. So the first thing I did was wake my husband up at 5 in the morning and tell him, hey, wake up, I'm pregnant. And his reaction was really lackluster. He was like, no, you're not. That's just a dollar pregnancy test. There's no way you're really pregnant. Babe, turn the light off. I'm just gonna go back to sleep. And I was shocked that that was the first reaction I got. But he just didn't believe the $1 pregnancy test. So then I called my mom and I was crying. Of course, I was freaking out. And actually my stepdad answered the phone. He was like, what's wrong? Like, do you need me to come over? He was getting ready to come over. And I was like, no, just let me speak to mommy. And I told her, I'm like, Mom, I'm pregnant. And she was like, okay, calm down. This is what you wanted. Thank God. But just be happy, but calm down, because I was freaking out, you guys. And then the third person I called was my best friend Myra, and she works with me and we used to carpool to work. So I told her and she cried with me. She was so happy for me, and those were the first people to know that I was pregnant. So then I got to work. Of course, I did let my manager know because we used to set up the outside and carry heavy tables. So of course I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't be carrying really heavy things. And then I got off of work that day. Of course, all I could think about was, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. But one pregnancy test wasn't enough for me. So I drove to CVS with Myra and I bought more pregnancy tests. And then surprise, when I got home, turns out my husband had bought pregnancy tests as well. And he had bought the ones that say pregnant or not pregnant. And I just bought like regular ones. So I took 3 more and of course they all came out positive. So that same night we decided we were gonna let his parents know, because my parents knew already, and we were gonna tell his parents. So what we did was wrap my pregnancy test in a box, and we bought some pacifiers and we put them in there, and we bought a card, and the card was of a pregnant lady, and then we just wrote on the card, Grandma and Grandpa, we're very excited to meet you, love, baby on the way. And we got to their house and we told them we had gotten them a little gift. And then once they, well, my mother-in-law, she opened it, she read the card, she was so nervous and she just jumped into my arms. She was so happy. Everyone was so happy because, as you guys know, this baby was so wanted, and so we were just ecstatic. However, I didn't want anyone else to know because it was way too early. I mean, it had been like maybe 2 weeks tops, because I know I got pregnant early September and it was late September. So I was like 3 weeks pregnant maybe. So the first symptoms I felt, as you guys know, were my breast hurting, my nipples hurting, period cramps. Besides that, I was smelling things. You guys know I work at the restaurant, so it's a breakfast and lunch restaurant, and I was smelling the eggs, and I love eggs, but just the smell, I was so disgusted. And besides that, I was starting to get nauseous, very exhausted. Wherever I laid my head down, I would fall asleep. So those were the first few symptoms. Of course, I called my gynecologist and we set up an appointment. And if you went by the last known period, which was for me late July, then I would have been 11 weeks pregnant, which I knew wasn't the case because I knew exactly when I ovulated, but that's what they thought I would be. So we did an ultrasound just to confirm the pregnancy. It's an internal ultrasound, and turns out I was 5 weeks and 6 days, and I knew that because like I said, I ovulated in September. And she was so tiny. They couldn't even tell me if the pregnancy was viable yet. So because of that, we set up an appointment for the next week. And I want to show you guys just how tiny my baby was that first ultrasound. So this was the first ultrasound, and do you see that little tiny thing here? That was her. She didn't even have a heartbeat yet. So we went back at 7 weeks and she did have a heartbeat, and the first time that I heard her heartbeat, I can't explain to you guys just how happy I was. I was exactly 7 weeks, and I'll try to include a clip of me hearing her heartbeat. And she had already formed, like, she looked like a little bean. She wasn't that little round thing anymore. So that was at 7 weeks. Because I'm crazy, I asked my doctor, okay, so because I knew that once you heard the heartbeat, the risk of miscarriage lowers. So I asked the doctor, I was like, oh, so now that we heard the heartbeat, like, what's my percentage of success? And she's like, well, once you hear the heartbeat, it's like 95% that your pregnancy will go on and you'll have a successful pregnancy. So I was holding on to that number. I was like, okay, that's perfect. It's 95%. Like, I'm gonna be okay, because even though I hate to say it, I am a pessimistic person. So as soon as I found out I was pregnant, as happy as I was, came all the worry, came all the insecurities, came, oh my gosh, am I gonna be a good mom? Came the, oh my god, 20% of pregnancies end in miscarriage. That's a heavy percentage. I started, like, you know, like, worrying about everything, because I'm a worrywart. And I hate that about myself, but it's the truth. It's who I am. So I was happy with 95%. I wanted to wait till 12 weeks to let people know that I was pregnant, because I know that after 12 weeks, that's really when the risk really lowers. And once you get to 12 weeks, it's almost guaranteed that you'll have a healthy pregnancy. So I wanted to wait, but my husband didn't. He wanted to tell our family, so we did. We told our immediate family, the people closest to us. I was 7 weeks and 6 days, and I remember because it was around Halloween time. And we gathered his family and my family at his mom's house, and he came in through the back door with a big baby costume because it was around Halloween. And then I went and I showed my ultrasound pictures, and it was amazing. Everyone was so happy for us. Everyone knew how much we wanted a baby, and everything was just beautiful. However, I was feeling off that day, and I couldn't, like, I didn't know why. I know that early pregnancy, of course, you don't feel too well. I was already getting nauseous. I was exhausted. Wherever I laid my head, I would fall asleep. But I just wasn't feeling well. I remember, like, after we told everyone, I actually went inside, and there was a Cowboys game on, and I was watching that, and I was just laying on the couch. And yeah, that's how we let our family know. The next day, this is where it's gonna get hard. I know I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. The next day was Halloween, and I went to my job. I went as a cute scarecrow. It turned out it was really busy that day, and I was 8 weeks. And I was running a lot of food. I was carrying the bigger trays. Being a server, when it gets busy, it gets a little stressful. And I'm the kind of person that I like to run my own food. I like to do my own things. I like to be fast at everything I do at work. So I know I worked really hard that day. So after that, I went to my mom's house after work, which I'm really glad I didn't go home because I would have been alone. And I took a nap. And once I woke up, I was having cramps and I just wasn't feeling well. And I went to the bathroom. I feel the tears coming. I went to the bathroom, and when I wiped, there was blood on the toilet paper. And I immediately thought I was having a miscarriage. I remember I threw myself on the floor, and I was telling my mom, like, I just want to die. Like, if I lose my baby, I just want to die. I don't want to keep living. Like, after everything I went through to get pregnant, I'm losing my baby. I know I'm having a miscarriage. That's what I was telling myself, and I was telling my mom, like, I know I'm having a miscarriage. Why else would I be bleeding? And the more I wiped, the more I bled. Sorry, I just still get so emotional over this. So my mom tried to calm me down, and she's like, you know, just try to pull yourself together. We're gonna go to the emergency room. And so we did, and for the first like half an hour they didn't even let her come inside with me, and I was just waiting for someone to come see me, and I was bawling my eyes out, just crying. I'm such a masochist. I was looking at her ultrasound pictures. I was playing her video of her heartbeat. I was just thinking that she was gone, that my baby was gone. Oh. So the first nurse that came see me, it was a male nurse. He was so sweet. He's like, what's going on, sweetie? What's wrong? And I told him, I'm like, I'm 8 weeks pregnant and I'm bleeding. And he's like, okay, breathe in and out, calm down. This doesn't necessarily mean a miscarriage is happening. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm bleeding. Like, what else could that mean? So they did blood work, they did a urine test, and they sent me to get an ultrasound. So the ultrasound tech at the emergency room, she wasn't showing me the screen. Like, I was laying down and the screen was here facing that way, and my mom was behind. So I was trying to tell my mom, like, Mom, like, what's going on? Tell me if you see a heartbeat. And she did see a little flicker. And the ultrasound tech, I guess she felt bad for me, so she like showed me for a little bit, and I got to hear her heartbeat, so I knew she was alive. Oh my god. So I knew she was alive, right? So I was like, okay, so why am I bleeding? So then they sent me to like another room, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and then my mom came with me, and I guess the hospital gynecologist came to see me, and she was like, so what you have is a subchorionic hematoma. Let me tell you guys exactly what that is, because I don't know exactly what it is. So a chorionic hematoma is the pooling of blood between the chorion, which is a membrane surrounding the embryo, and the uterine wall. It occurs in about 3.1% of all pregnancies, and it is the most common sonographic abnormality and the most common cause of first trimester bleeding. So it only occurs in 3% of pregnancies, and of course it happened to me. So she was very blunt, and she's like, so just so you know, when there is bleeding in pregnancies, usually it's a 50-50% of the pregnancy continuing. So I went from 95% of my pregnancy continuing to a 50% of my pregnancy continuing, all in 1 week. So imagine how hard that was for me, after how happy I was that I was finally pregnant after years of wanting a baby so bad, to having a 95% of having a baby, and then this doctor telling me it was a 50%. Like, the people at the ER, they're just very blunt. They just tell you like the statistics. They don't tell you like what you want to hear. They just tell you like what it is. However, my when I read the discharge papers and everything, my subchorionic hematoma was very small. It was like 5 millimeters. So I knew there was a chance for it to get bigger or get smaller, because I'm crazy, and the first thing I did was Google it, and which is terrible, because all you see is the horrible stories that go with it. And some people bleed a lot, some people keep bleeding their whole pregnancy, some people's hematoma, like it gets bigger, and so of course, me being pessimistic, I thought the worst. So they sent me home with, they told me I needed to stay home for about a week. I was on bed rest, modified bed rest, and I was on pelvic rest as well. So no sex, no heavy lifting, no, you know, I just needed to take it easy, put my feet up, not do a lot around the house, and so that's what I did. So because of that, I wanted to make sure I would have a healthy pregnancy, so I decided to stay home from work until I was 12 weeks. And thank goodness, like, my managers are so sweet, and they said, you know, just take all the time you need, let us know what's going on, and then when you're ready to come back, you'll just come back. This month that I stayed home was very hard on me mentally, because I was on baby center all day, every day. I was on Google. I was, you know, Googling about the hematoma. I was Googling about miscarriage. You know, with PCOS, like, the risk of miscarriage also increases. So because of this happening to me, I just thought that at any point in my pregnancy, my baby would die, basically. Like, I was gonna lose my baby. Sooner or later, it was gonna happen. Like, this was my mentality for that whole month I was home. I went back to the gynecologist, my gynecologist. It was almost at 10 weeks. They wanted to see me just to make sure everything was okay once they found that subchorionic hematoma. And the ultrasound tech, she was like, Mama, because she's Cuban and she was so nice. She's like, Mama, whatever you have, whatever you had, it's gone. I can't see it anywhere in your uterus. It's not there. But I was still spotting a little bit, so even though she had told me that everything was fine, just I didn't want to believe it. So then at 10 weeks, I also had a pap smear done, and the doctor told me, please don't freak out. You are gonna bleed a little bit, but don't think it's anything but because of the pap smear. So of course, me being the person I am, even though she told me this, I was freaking out. I bled that day. I had cramps that day. The next 2 days after that, I was still spotting, and here I go again, like, me worrying. And I wasn't gonna go back till the 12 weeks to see the little fluid in the back of the baby's neck. So for 2 weeks, I wasn't gonna know what was going on. So from 8 to 12 weeks, my pregnancy was really, really tough. Not only did I not know what was going to happen, but of course I was nauseous. I threw up. Thank God I never threw up a lot. I only threw up a handful of times, but I was very nauseous. I was exhausted. I was sleeping all the time. I was depressed because of what was happening. I was home all day, so that made it even worse. All I was doing was just on Google, you know, worst possible thing you can do. I was nauseous, like I said. I couldn't even brush my teeth of how nauseous I was. Like, I loved Colgate toothpaste. I couldn't use it. It was disgusting. I would just gag all the time. I lost weight the first trimester because I just had no appetite. At 12 weeks, I went to see the baby's back of the neck. They did the thing. Everything looked perfect. Of course, she was doing well. She was good. And each time I went to the doctor, I would just pray to hear her heartbeat and that everything would be okay. And I feel like with my pregnancy and with my complications, like, I just became so much closer to God, because I was just thanking him every day that my baby was fine. And I was just, you know, praying for her health and praying for a healthy pregnancy after that. And I'm just so blessed to have her here with me now. Let me show you her. She's in her swing. She's taking a little nappy on her swing. So after 12 weeks, I went back to work, and I think that's the best thing I could have ever done, because it kept my mind off of, you know, the Google and the baby center and the hematoma and the miscarriage and all of that. So I went back to work, and after the 12 weeks, my baby was so much bigger already. She looked like a little tiny person, and let me show you her. That was her right here, and she was already so much more grown. It's crazy how much they develop in the early weeks of pregnancy. So at 10 weeks, I had gotten some blood work done just to make sure there was no abnormalities, and then also to find out the gender. and turns out I didn't have enough of her DNA inside of me. So at 12 weeks they redid the blood work, and then about 2 weeks later the results were in, and I actually had given Myra, my best friend, the results just so she could find out what I was having, and she would be the one to basically fill up the piñata for our gender reveal, and that's how we would know. So I knew in my heart that I was having a girl. I always saw myself as a boy mom, but as soon as I found out I was pregnant, something inside of me was just telling me that it was a girl. Even when my mom thought that I was having a boy, and for a little while I was like, yeah, you know, like, I'm having a boy because there's no girls in my husband's side of the family, they're all boys. So even though for a while I was like, no, I'm having a boy, like deep inside I knew I was having a girl. So much so that for the gender reveal I wore pink, because that's how sure I was that I was having a girl. So we had our gender reveal, and we found out that Emma was a girl, and it was really funny because it was one of those piñatas where you pull string, and my husband pulled out a piece of the piñata that was blue, so he thought we were having a boy for like the first 10 seconds, and it wasn't until his cousin was like, no dude, like, look to the floor, it's all pink. So that was really exciting, and that was at 14 weeks, and the first trimester is up until 14 weeks, and then the second one is from 14 to 28, and then the third one is from 28 to 40. So I was so happy to be out of the first trimester. You have no idea. With everything that happened, that was the longest few months of my life. That was the longest trimester. And I actually did the gender reveal, and like, I hadn't even announced my pregnancy. It was just my closest family and friends. So for Christmas, when I was 16 weeks, that's when we decided to announce our pregnancy, because I was just confident that everything would be okay from now on. And we announced our pregnancy, and with the second trimester came a lot of peace, I want to say. I would even forget that I was pregnant, because I was back at having energy. I was back to having an appetite. I was working full-time again. I was just doing good. I was doing good. A few of the symptoms I felt the second trimester. I had horrible, terrible back pain. That was one of the worst symptoms, actually. I had horrible back pain to the point where I had to get adjusted by a chiropractor. And he was like, you know, like, it's weird that you have like this bad of backache so early on. Then I also found out that I had an interior placenta, so I was like, great. So on top of everything that happened, I have an interior placenta, which isn't, you know, like, usually the placenta is on the side and towards the back. So I wasn't gonna feel my baby move till later on, and I was like, great, like, what else? What else can happen? But that's an ungrateful way of thinking, because I have a beautiful baby girl now, but at the time that's what I was thinking, you know. So I didn't feel my baby move till 19 weeks is when I first felt my baby move. And when people say that it feels like gas bubbles or like little butterflies, it's totally true. That is exactly what I felt. I just felt little gas bubbles, and I remember it because I was watching a movie called Everything, which is really cute, by the way, and I felt it, and I turned the TV off, and I was like, oh my god, like, I just felt my baby. So it was a wonderful experience. Other symptoms I felt in the second trimester, I finally wasn't nauseous anymore. My nausea lasted till 16 weeks. I was craving things, but I wasn't craving anything crazy like plastic or soap or paint or like crazy things that people crave. I was craving spicy food. Every single Saturday, my husband and I would have Mexican tortas, which are like sandwiches, and I would eat it with 2 jalapenos, and I would just like bite into them, and oh, I was obsessed with those. Also, my husband would make me a strawberry smoothie like 3 times a week, and I would take it to work and stuff, and that was another one of my cravings. I just had a really good second trimester. However, I did become anemic with my pregnancy, which means low iron. So I was on iron supplements, so TMI, but oh my god, I wasn't pooping. It was terrible. You become so constipated. You become constipated as it is. Plus, then I was on iron, so I was even more constipated. So that sucked. My baby's first kick from the outside that I could see was at 23 weeks, and that was amazing. I actually got it on camera. I'll try to include clips of everything throughout this video also, so I know this video is gonna be long. Also at 20 weeks we went to do her anatomy scan, and everything was perfect. These are the ultrasound pictures from 20 weeks, and she was already so big. I had already began to show at 20 weeks. Here we confirmed that she was 100% princess, 100% a girl. So that was great. So my second trimester was awesome. And the first weeks of my third trimester, they were good too. Around 30 weeks, we got our maternity shoot done by one of my best friends, Jessica, and we went to the beach, and we went downtown, and we took beautiful pictures, and that was a great experience. She was moving the whole time we took the pictures. Around 32 weeks, we got her 3D ultrasound, and this is actually one of her pictures from her 3D ultrasound. And she was being a little stubborn one. Her hand was on her face the whole entire time. She was asleep the whole entire time, so we couldn't see her well. But at that ultrasound, the tech told me that she was going to be a big girl because she had chubby cheeks, and she could tell she was going to be a big girl. She was already head down at 32 weeks. Also at 32 weeks was my baby shower, and we are just so blessed to have so many family members and so many good friends that came and celebrated her with us. Third trimester symptoms, mood swings, like crazy mood swings. I was hot, and I'm talking about like sweating so bad. I was always hot at work. I was super hot at home. The AC would be at 67 degrees, and I was sweating. I was taking my clothes off while I was sleeping, which is crazy because I'm always cold. So it was crazy to me like how hot I was feeling. I was craving sweet things. Like at the end of my pregnancy, all I wanted was sweets. I wanted pancakes and French toast and chocolate chip waffles and all things sweet, and which is what I was eating at work, which wasn't great, but that's what it was. Also, I became, again, extremely tired. The weight of the belly really got to me. My back was hurting again. My nipples, I was leaking a little milk for the last few weeks of my pregnancy. I was leaking a little milk. That was crazy too. I was nesting. From 36 onwards, I was nesting. I got this nursery done. I got my hospital bags ready. I was ready. At 36 weeks, you start going every single week. Ooh, what are you doing, girl? So at 36 weeks, I went, and they let me know that I was gonna start getting checked for dilation, but I didn't get checked that week. I didn't get checked at 37 weeks either. At 38 weeks, I did get checked at 37 weeks, and there was nothing. I was completely closed, high up, nothing was happening. At 38 weeks, I was 2 centimeters dilated and 70% effaced, and the doctor that checked me at 38 weeks, she was like, oh, you're gonna have this baby. I don't see you going past 39 weeks, blah, blah, blah. And we were ready. I told my mom, I told my mother-in-law, like we were just expecting me to have that, my baby that weekend. Nothing happened. Then at 39 weeks, I went, and nothing had changed. I was still 2 centimeters, almost 3, and 70% effaced. And then at 40 weeks, when I went, that's when I was almost 4 centimeters and about 80% effaced. So my doctor told me that She didn't want me going past 41 weeks because she could tell Emma was going to be a big baby. So we set up an induction date, and that was for the 17th. But she was confident that she wasn't even going to make it to that day. She's like, it was a Tuesday, and she told me before Friday, I'm sure you're going to have her. And she was absolutely right, because I ended up having her the very next day. So yeah, guys, this is my pregnancy journey, my pregnancy story. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys would like to know about my labor and delivery, I can do that as well. I actually had a pretty fast labor. It was less than 12 hours. Also, I want to do a nursery tour because I'm in love. This is my favorite room of the whole house, and I would love to show you guys how crafty I got with my pregnancy. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and leave me a comment down below with video ideas, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye! Whew, I don't want to have like mascara all over my face. Mexican tortas